There are mornings when you wake up and it feels like your soul has forgotten how to breathe. The room is quiet, but the silence is heavy, a kind of weight that doesn't come from what's around you, but from what's inside. You open your eyes, but your spirit stays asleep. You go through the motions, coffee, clothes, commute, but there's a dull ache behind your ribs that whispers, something's not right. You can't explain it. You just feel ... tired. Not the kind of tired sleep can fix, but the kind that seeps into your hope, into your faith. And yet, somewhere beneath that heaviness, God is stirring. You may not feel him, but he is there, in the unseen, breathing life into what you thought was numb. You see, the weight you woke up with isn't always punishment. Sometimes it's preparation. Sometimes it's the holy pause between the breaking and the blessing, the moment God uses to remind you that peace isn't found when everything's perfect. It's found when you remember who holds you in the storm. Because before peace is felt, it's given. Before it calms your emotions, it anchors your soul. You don't have to understand the why of this season to experience the presence of God in it. You only need to be still enough to hear the whisper that says, "You are not forgotten. I am still here." The morning light slipped through the curtains like a whisper, not enough to wake the world, but enough to remind you that time is still moving. Even when your heart feels like it's standing still, you sit on the edge of your bed, eyes unfocused, the weight of something invisible pressing on your chest. It's not sadness exactly, it's deeper, quieter, like the echo of a storm that has already passed but left its clouds behind. You try to shake it off. You tell yourself it's just another day. But something in your spirit knows better. Something in you feels heavy, as if your soul is carrying a burden your hands can't touch. There's a kind of fatigue that sleep can't cure, a kind of weariness that doesn't live in your body but in your belief. It's when the prayers you've prayed feel stale, when your faith feels like an unanswered voicemail you keep leaving on heaven's line. You tell yourself you're okay, but the truth is, you don't know how to reach peace anymore. You used to feel it. You used to sense God in the small things, the laughter of a friend, the wind brushing past your face, the gentle rhythm of a quiet night. But lately, even those things feel distant, like memories from another life. You wonder if God still hears you, if he's still near, if he's still good, and yet, somewhere inside, you don't want to give up. There's still that faint pulse of hope, fragile, flickering, but alive, like a candle that refuses to be extinguished, even in the wind. That small, stubborn spark that whispers, "Keep going." You rise from the bed and step toward the window. The morning feels colder than usual, but you notice something strange. A single bird sitting on the bare branch of a winter tree, singing into the grayness. Its song isn't loud or perfect, but it's steady, persistent. The bird doesn't seem to care that the sky is cloudy or that the air is sharp. It sings anyway. And in that moment, something stirs inside you. A quiet revelation. Maybe peace isn't about the absence of heaviness, but the presence of praise in the middle of it. Maybe that's what God's trying to teach you right now. That peace isn't found when the storm stops. It's found when you learn to sing in it. You whisper a small prayer. You don't even know if you mean it, but you say it anyway. God, please, I need you today. The words hang in the air, Nothing happens. No lightning, no voice from heaven, no sudden burst of inspiration, just stillness. But this time, the stillness feels different. It's not empty, it's full, heavy but holy. It's the kind of stillness that carries presence, the kind that doesn't speak but knows as you stand there. You begin to realize God doesn't always come with answers. Sometimes He comes with awareness, awareness that He's still there, even when nothing makes sense. Awareness that peace is not the reward for having it all together, but the grace that finds you when you fall apart. You sit down again, but this time not out of exhaustion, out of surrender. You close your eyes, take a slow breath, and let the silence become sacred. Because maybe peace isn't something you achieve. Maybe it's something you allow. You remember a verse that once comforted you, "Be still and know that I am God." You used to think be still meant do nothing, but now you realize it means stop fighting. Stop forcing what only faith can heal. Stop running from the very silence that can restore you. The more you breathe, the softer the heaviness becomes. Not gone, but gentler. Like God is taking the edges of your pain and rounding them into something you can hold without breaking. You begin to sense maybe this heaviness wasn't punishment. Maybe it was the weight of His hand resting on you, not to crush you, but to calm you. That's the paradox of His presence. Sometimes it feels like pressure before it feels like peace. Sometimes the hand that presses is the same one that heals. You open your eyes again and realize something beautiful. The world hasn't changed, but you have. The morning is still gray, but now the light looks softer. The bird still sings, and its song sounds louder. The silence still lingers, but it no longer feels lonely. And you sense that God is saying something, not in words, but in warmth. Something like, you don't need to escape this moment. I'm already in it. Your body exhales without your permission. For the first time in weeks, your chest feels lighter. And in that small, holy breath, peace arrives. Not all at once, but in fragments, like sunlight through cracked glass. And you know deep in your soul, this is how God moves. Quietly, patiently, invisibly, until suddenly, He's everywhere. This is how peace begins. That day passes slower than most. Time doesn't seem to move forward. It just hums softly in the background. Like a song you've heard your whole life, but never really listened to. Every hour feels the same, and yet something in the air feels different. It's not that your problems disappeared. The bills still sit on the counter. The messages still go unanswered. The ache still lingers. But underneath it all, there's a strange calm, a quiet assurance that somehow, even if nothing changes today, something has already shifted inside you. You begin to notice that peace isn't loud. It doesn't announce itself with miracles or signs. It doesn't storm into your life waving a banner of victory. No, peace arrives like dawn, slow and soft, inching through the cracks of your brokenness until it fills the room of your soul. It doesn't demand attention. It simply waits for you to notice. That afternoon, as you walk down the street, your thoughts drift to all the times you almost gave up. The nights when prayer felt pointless. The mornings when your faith felt like ashes. You remember the voices, internal and external, that told you it was over, that maybe God had moved on to someone else. And you remember how easy it would have been to agree with them. But you didn't. You kept showing up. You kept whispering prayers into the dark, even when you weren't sure anyone was listening. And maybe that's what faith really is, not the roar of confidence, but the quiet decision to try again when nothing feels certain. You stop for a moment by a small park bench and sit down. Across the street, a mother is holding her child's hand as they cross the road. The child stumbles slightly, and the mother's hand tightens, steadying them. You can't hear their voices, but you can see the comfort. The grip never loosened, and something in that image pierces through your heart, because you realize that's exactly how God has held you, not preventing every stumble, but never letting go when you fell. You whisper under your breath, "You never left, did you?" The air is still. A leaf drifts past you, caught in a soft breeze, spinning gently before landing on the ground. And you feel it again, that awareness, that warmth. You don't hear a voice, but you feel one. Like the answer isn't in words, but in presence. It's then that you remember something from Scripture, the story of Elijah in the cave. He was desperate, broken, ready to quit. And God told him to stand on the mountain, for his presence was about to pass by. There was a mighty wind, but God wasn't in the wind. Then an earthquake, but God wasn't in the earthquake. Then fire, but still no voice. And after the fire, there came a whisper. You always wondered why God chose a whisper instead of thunder. But now, sitting here, you understand, because whispers can only be heard up close. When God whispers, it means He's near. You close your eyes again, letting that realization wash over you. He never left. The silence was not His absence. It was His invitation to draw closer, to listen deeper, to trust that His stillness was still speaking. The heaviness begins to dissolve. Not because life suddenly got easier, but because your perspective shifted. The storm outside no longer has power over the calm within. You take a deep breath, and for the first time, gratitude slips into your heart without forcing it. Gratitude, not for what has happened, but for what's happening inside you. You're learning that surrender is not weakness, it's worship. It's the moment you stop fighting for control and start allowing God to guide what was never yours to carry. You stand up and begin walking again, slower this time, as if each step is a prayer. You look around, the same world, the same sky, but it all feels sacred now. Every sound, every face, every moment feels like a reminder that you are part of something bigger, something held, something divine. When you reach home, you sit quietly and open your journal. You write without thinking, the words spilling out like a confession and a revelation all at once. Maybe peace isn't when the pain ends. Maybe it's when I stop letting the pain define me. You pause, staring at the words. They don't feel poetic, they feel honest. And that honesty is healing. You begin to understand what God has been doing all along. He wasn't ignoring you. He was emptying you, clearing space in your soul so that peace could have somewhere to live. Because peace doesn't coexist with control. It grows in surrender. The weight you once hated, the delay, the unanswered questions, the quiet, all of it was grace in disguise. The kind that breaks before it builds. The kind that humbles before it heals. And as the night falls, the world outside your window turns golden under the streetlight's glow. You whisper softly, "Thank you, God, for not giving me what I wanted, but for giving me what I needed. You." The stillness answers back with warmth. Peace has settled in. Not loud, not dramatic, but real. And as you lay down to rest, you realize, sometimes, the most powerful move of God begins not with a miracle, but with a sigh that says, "I surrender." The night holds you, and so does He. The morning arrives, not with noise, but with gentleness, the kind of light that doesn't wake you abruptly, but touches your face softly, as if heaven itself is reminding you to breathe. You wake up with that faint stillness still resting over your chest, but now it feels different. It's not the weight of despair anymore. It's the weight of presence. You realize you didn't escape the storm. You simply stopped trying to control it. And that's when God begins to move. You pour a cup of coffee and sit by the window, watching the world outside unfold in quiet patterns. A man walking his dog, a car splashing through a shallow puddle, the neighbor's curtain swaying with the wind. Nothing extraordinary, but to your spirit, every detail feels holy. It's as if creation itself is whispering a secret you're just beginning to understand. That God is not only in the miraculous, He's in the mundane. The whisper of steam rising from your cup, the pulse of your heartbeat, the rhythm of a world still turning even when your plans have paused for so long. You thought peace would come when things started to happen, when prayers were answered, when the pain was gone, when the waiting was over. But today, you feel something sacred settle inside you. Peace doesn't come after the breakthrough. Peace is the breakthrough. You think about all the times you questioned why God delayed what you prayed for. All the times you begged for doors to open, only to find them locked. But what if the waiting wasn't punishment? What if it was protection? What if every not yet was God building something deeper inside you than the thing you were asking for? You close your eyes and whisper, "Lord, I see it now." And in that moment, something shifts again, not around you, but within you. You begin to see how the silence was never wasted. The waiting wasn't empty. Every quiet night, every tear, every prayer that felt unanswered was actually a conversation, one where God was listening more than you realized. He wasn't ignoring you. He was preparing you. You remember the story of Joseph, how he was thrown into a pit, then imprisoned, betrayed, forgotten. Years passed, and it must have felt like God's promises were lies. But every delay had divine design. The pit was preparation for the palace. The prison was the training ground for purpose. And when God finally moved, everything happened suddenly. But the sudden was built on years of silent shaping. You realize now, maybe God's silence isn't denial. Maybe it's His strategy. Maybe He's preparing a version of your future that requires this version of your patience. You take another sip of coffee, and for the first time, you don't rush to fill the silence with noise. You just sit in it, because you've learned that silence isn't always empty. Sometimes it's sacred space. Later that day, you walk by a small church on the corner, one you've passed 100 times without noticing. The doors are open, and something draws you in. Inside, the air smells of candles and time. The light filters through stained glass, painting the floor in colors that looked like heaven spilled onto the earth. You take a seat in the back pew, unsure why you came, but certain you're supposed to be here. You don't pray for answers, you just breathe. You let the stillness of the sanctuary mirror the stillness in your soul. And then, in that quiet space, a thought comes, not loud, but unmistakable. You were never waiting for peace. Peace was waiting for you. It's like a door opening in your heart. A realization too simple to have been missed, yet too deep to have been random. All this time, you were searching for something to remove your pain when God was trying to teach you to see Him through it. You were asking for calm seas, but He was giving you stronger faith to walk on water. You look up at the stained glass, a depiction of Christ with arms open wide. The colors shimmer like liquid fire. His expression isn't stern, it's gentle, inviting. And suddenly you see it. Surrender isn't the end of control. It's the beginning of communion. You bow your head, and this time your prayer isn't desperate. It's honest. It's surrendered. Even if nothing changes around me, change me. Tears slip quietly down your cheeks, not from sorrow, but from release. You don't feel empty anymore. You feel poured out, and in that pouring, you finally understand what it means to rest in God. He doesn't always remove the weight. Sometimes, He teaches you how to carry it with grace. You stay there for a long time, letting His presence fill every crack in your heart. Every regret, every disappointment, every why that used to haunt you, all of it begins to feel smaller compared to the vastness of His peace. When you finally rise to leave, you notice the world outside looks different, brighter, softer, alive. It's as though heaven followed you out of the sanctuary. The sky feels closer. The air feels cleaner. Because when your soul shifts, so does the way you see everything. You take one last look back at the open door of the church, and you whisper, "Thank you." And though no one is there, you feel the echo of that gratitude linger, not in the air, but in your chest. Peace isn't fragile anymore. It's rooted. It's alive. It's Him. The following morning carries a weightless quiet, not the kind that presses down on you, but the kind that holds you gently. You wake up slowly, aware of how light your body feels, how unhurried your heart has become. For the first time in a long time, you don't reach for your phone, or your worries, or your need to fix what's unfinished. You just sit there in the stillness and breathe. The air feels softer. The morning feels safe. You realize that peace doesn't always announce itself. Sometimes it simply waits for you to notice it's already arrived. You make your way to the window again, the same window where, days ago, you felt so lost. But this time, you notice the way the light bends through the glass, the way it paints your floor with gold. The same bird sits on the same branch outside, singing the same song. But now, it sounds like worship. You finally understand. Nothing around you changed. You did. The heaviness that used to define your mornings has become holy ground, proof that even in silence, God was working. That every pause had purpose, that every delay had design. You remember now how frustrated you used to get when doors closed, when prayers lingered unanswered. But as you stand in that same light, you realize those weren't endings. They were redirections. Every no was mercy disguised. Every wait was God saying, "I'm building something better." You can see it clearly now. Peace doesn't arrive when life gets easier. Peace arrives when you stop needing to understand why it's hard. You pour your coffee again, but this time it tastes different, not because the recipe changed, but because you're finally present enough to savor it. Each small act feels like communion. The warmth of the cup in your hands, the steady rhythm of your breath, the hum of the quiet world waking around you. Everything is a reminder that peace isn't somewhere you go. It's someone you let in. Later, you step outside. The air is crisp, alive, filled with the scent of earth after rain. You walk without a destination, guided only by the rhythm of your heartbeat, steady, strong, unhurried. For the first time in a long while, your mind isn't chasing something that hasn't happened yet. You're here, and being here feels like a miracle. You whisper softly to the sky, "God, I get it now. You weren't late. I was just impatient." And in that moment, you sense him again, not in thunder or fire, but in the quiet wind that brushes your face. The same peace that found you in stillness now moves with you in motion as you walk. You think of all the people who are where you were, people waking up heavy, praying for something to shift. You wish you could tell them what you've learned, that peace doesn't always roar into your life. Sometimes it arrives as a whisper, a breath, a moment of letting go. That surrender is not losing. It's the doorway to transformation. You want to tell them that the delay is not denial, it's development. That God isn't withholding, He's weaving. He's not ignoring you, He's integrating you into something you can't yet see. The waiting room is where the roots grow deepest. And when the time comes, the shift will happen, not gradually, but suddenly. Suddenly, you'll realize you're lighter. Suddenly, you'll notice the pain has become peace. Suddenly, you'll see that what you called delay was actually divine timing in disguise. You stop near a small river that winds through the park, its surface catching the light like shards of heaven scattered across the water. You kneel beside it, touch the surface, and feel the coolness ripple outward from your fingertips. You watch how the water accepts your touch without resistance, how it moves and flows effortlessly around every obstacle, and you think, this is what surrender looks like. Not control, not striving, just trust, just flow. For the first time, you feel a peace that isn't dependent on circumstances, a peace that lives beyond emotion, beyond outcome. A peace that has a name. You whisper it quietly, Jesus. It's not a plea anymore. It's gratitude. It's revelation. It's rest. The world feels sacred again, not because it changed, but because you finally see it through grace instead of fear. You realize that peace was never a place to arrive at. It was a person who never left. The sun begins to set, painting the sky in gold and rose. The reflection shimmers on the river like fire dancing on glass. You stay there until the light fades, your soul still, your heart full, and as the night rises, you sense one last whisper, the same voice that carried you through every heavy morning, every silent night, every unanswered prayer. You were never alone. I was working the whole time. Tears fall again, but this time they're not from sorrow. They're from knowing that the silence was sacred, knowing that surrender was strength, knowing that peace was never something you had to find. It was someone who found you. You rise, breathing in the cool night air, and as you walk home under the gentle hush of twilight, your heart beats with quiet certainty. God has not forgotten you. He's still writing your story. And when He moves, you'll understand why He waited. Because what He's preparing was always bigger than what you were praying for. And now you finally have the peace to wait for it.